The morning air carried the familiar scent of roasted coffee beans, a fragrance Ethan Cross once found comforting. Now, as he stood outside the glass-paneled doors of Brew Haven, his first and most beloved cafe, the aroma felt almost foreign. He adjusted the frayed beanie on his head, ensuring it covered the neatly styled hair that usually signified his executive status. His casual hoodie and worn jeans completed the disguise, just another man looking for work, not the CEO of a multimillion-dollar coffeehouse empire. Stepping inside, Ethan braced himself for the warmth and familiarity he once knew. But the cafe's atmosphere was different. The lighting was dimmer, the once inviting decor now worn and neglected. A faint stickiness clung to the floor beneath his sneakers. Customers waited with impatience rather than ease, their eyes darting toward the counter, where a single barista struggled to keep up with orders. The woman behind the register barely glanced at him when he approached. "Help you?" she asked, her tone bored. I was hoping to apply for a job," Ethan said, keeping his voice low, rougher than his usual confident cadence. The woman rolled her eyes and jerked a thumb toward the back. "Talk to Lisa." Ethan nodded, suppressing the irritation curling in his stomach. He moved past the counter, maneuvering through a cluttered path toward the manager's office. A woman in her late 40s leaned against the desk, her phone in hand, fingers tapping rapidly against the screen. She barely looked up as he entered. "Yeah," she said, her tone clipped. "I'm here about the job. Name's Noah Carter." Lisa exhaled sharply, finally setting her phone down. Her eyes skimmed over him with little interest. "You have experience?" "Yes," Ethan lied smoothly. "Worked a few places. Can start immediately." "Perfect," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're hired." Ethan blinked. "That's it." She smirked. "You're cheap labor. We're drowning out there, and I don't have time to train someone. Figure it out." She grabbed her phone again, already dismissing him. Something about her tone sent a chill through Ethan's spine. He had hired people personally in the past. He valued effort, enthusiasm. Here, he was nothing more than a body to fill space. "Get behind the counter," she added without looking up. "Miguel'll show you around." Miguel was the barista from earlier, the one frantically juggling drink orders while attempting to manage the growing line. He was lean, with dark circles under his eyes, and wore an apron stained with coffee splatters. Ethan slid in beside him just as a customer snapped. "Excuse me, I've been waiting for 10 minutes." Miguel gave an apologetic nod and hastily handed over a latte. When Ethan tried to introduce himself, Miguel barely had time to respond. "Miguel," he said quickly. "You ever worked machines before?" "Yeah, but maybe a quick refresher?" Ethan said, playing the part. Miguel let out a breath, but nodded. "Just don't slow me down." Ethan observed as Miguel maneuvered between the espresso machine and the register, moving with a practiced efficiency. There was no conversation beyond clipped orders and rushed acknowledgments. Customers barely glanced at the workers behind the counter, treating them as nothing more than the hands delivering their drinks. Ethan's muscles tensed as he realized how much had changed. Brew Haven was built on a foundation of warmth, of community. This felt transactional, robotic. When he had first opened this cafe, he envisioned a place where both customers and employees felt valued. But now, there was an undeniable disconnect. He caught Miguel rubbing his temples between orders. "You okay?" Ethan asked. Miguel let out a tired chuckle. "Just another day." The words were meant to be light, but there was a heaviness behind them Ethan couldn't ignore. Hours passed, the rush ebbing and flowing. Ethan took every opportunity to absorb his surroundings. The coffee machines sputtered from what sounded like poor maintenance. The supply shelves were disorganized, essential ingredients missing. More than once, he overheard customers mumbling complaints about slow service, about the decline in quality, about how this place just isn't the same. It wasn't. As his shift neared its end, Ethan took a moment to step back, wiping down the counter as Miguel took a much-needed break. The cafe had emptied slightly, and for the first time that day, Ethan had a moment to breathe. That was when he heard them. Two women sat near the window, their conversation hushed but edged with frustration. Ethan wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but their words carried just enough for him to catch. "I used to love this place," one of them said, stirring her half-finished coffee absent-mindedly. "Ever since the new management took over, it's been all about profit. Employees get treated like garbage." Ethan stiffened, his fingers tightening around the rag he held. Her friend shook her head. "Did you hear about that guy last month? Ryan? Got fired because he called in sick." Ethan went still. "Ryan?" "Yeah," the first woman muttered. "He was one of the only people who actually cared about this place. Now they've got some awful manager running things into the ground." The conversation continued, but Ethan's heartbeat pounded too loudly in his ears to process more. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to remain calm, to keep scrubbing the counter, as though he hadn't just heard his company being condemned right in front of him. Ryan had been one of his best employees. Loyal, hardworking. The idea that he'd been fired over something so petty, it didn't sit right. His gaze flickered toward Lisa's office, where she still sat, scrolling through her phone without a care in the world. Ethan had come here expecting to find small problems, minor mismanagement. He hadn't expected this. A sick feeling settled in his gut. Something was very, very wrong at Brew Haven, and he was going to get to the bottom of it. Ethan forced himself to continue wiping the counter, his hands steady despite the turmoil churning inside him. The voices of the two women at the window still echoed in his mind. He had spent years building Brew Haven into more than just a coffeehouse chain. He had envisioned it as a community, a place where employees were valued, where customers felt at home. And yet, here he stood, disguised in his own café, listening to strangers talk about it like a failing business run by people who had stopped caring. His fingers tightened around the rag as the name Ryan replayed in his head. Ryan had been a cornerstone of this location, a shift leader who had treated the café and its staff like family. The idea that he had been discarded over something as trivial as calling in sick made Ethan's jaw clench. He had always believed that his leadership, even from afar, ensured fairness. But what if he had been blind? Miguel returned from his break, rubbing the back of his neck as he surveyed the nearly empty café. "You good?" he asked, noticing Ethan's rigid posture. Ethan forced a nod. "Just tired. Long shift." Miguel huffed out a laugh. "Yeah, you'll get used to it. Or quit. Most people don't last long." Ethan frowned. "Why is that?" Miguel glanced toward Lisa's office before answering. "Management. This place wasn't always like this, you know? Back when Ryan was here, things ran smoothly. We had actual schedules, breaks that weren't cut short, even incentives. But Lisa took over, and suddenly it's all about numbers. No overtime, no bonuses, no complaints unless you want to risk your job." He shook his head, bitterness creeping into his voice. People stopped caring because she stopped caring. Ethan absorbed the words in silence, his mind racing. Lisa wasn't just bad at her job, she was actively making it worse. But he needed more than rumors. He needed proof. The next morning, Ethan arrived early, long before the first rush. The cafe was quiet, the air thick with the scent of freshly brewed coffee. He moved through the space with a sharp eye, noting the cracks in the foundation, literally and figuratively. The espresso machines sputtered with age, their maintenance clearly overdue. The shelves behind the counter were half-stocked, ingredients missing without explanation. Even the register's screen flickered, as if ready to die at any moment. Miguel arrived a few minutes later, looking more exhausted than the day before. "You open today?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. Ethan nodded. "Figured I'd get a feel for things before the rush." Miguel smirked. "Good luck with that." Lisa arrived last, strolling in with a coffee from a rival cafe in hand. She took one look at Ethan and sneered. "You're early." "Figured I'd get ahead," Ethan said smoothly. Lisa scoffed, moving toward the back office without another word. As soon as she was gone, Miguel leaned closer. "She barely shows up on time, but if we're late, docked pay." Ethan exhaled slowly, suppressing the anger bubbling beneath his skin. He needed to keep his cover intact, to observe without acting. Yet, the morning rush hit fast, a line forming out the door. Ethan kept his head down, working beside Miguel, learning the flow of orders, the rhythm of the cafe. He saw it all, how customers hesitated to tip, how employees moved like machines rather than people. And then there was Lisa, hovering only when she needed to reprimand. Her presence a reminder that mistakes wouldn't be tolerated. It wasn't until later that Ethan saw his opportunity. Lisa had left her office door ajar while on a call, her voice drifting into the cafe. Ethan moved discreetly, pretending to wipe down a nearby table, ears sharp. "Yeah, the numbers look good. Cutting shifts helped." "Don't worry, corporate doesn't check small stores like this," Lisa said, a smirk in her tone. Ethan's grip tightened on the rag. She continued, "No, I haven't processed the bonuses. Waste of money. These kids should be grateful they even have jobs." His pulse roared in his ears. Employees had been promised performance bonuses. He had approved them himself months ago. If Lisa had been pocketing them or simply refusing to distribute them, it wasn't just unethical. It was theft. As Lisa hung up, Ethan forced himself to step away, his mind a storm of fury and disbelief. He needed more. That night, after the cafe had closed and Miguel had gone home, Ethan lingered, pretending to sweep while Lisa locked up the office. When she left, he moved quickly, slipping inside before the door shut fully. The desk was cluttered with receipts, schedules, and a company laptop. Ethan's fingers hovered over the touchpad before he clicked into the financial records. What he saw made his stomach turn. The numbers didn't add up. Employee bonuses had been marked as distributed, yet payroll records showed no such transactions. Shift hours were slashed across the board, even for those scheduled for full-time. Supply orders were irregular, with inflated costs that didn't match the quality of inventory. Lisa had been manipulating the books. A slow exhale left Ethan's lips as he leaned back, his hands curling into fists. This wasn't negligence. This was intentional. He had come here expecting to fix minor issues, to reconnect with the heart of his business. Instead, he had uncovered rot at its core. Footsteps sounded outside the office, and Ethan quickly shut the laptop, slipping out just as Lisa re-entered. She shot him a suspicious glance. "Still here?" Ethan forced a sheepish smile. "Wanted to finish cleaning." Lisa gave him a long, assessing look before shrugging. "Don't get any ideas. You're disposable." The words struck deeper than she intended. Ethan nodded, biting back his response. He walked past her, stepping out into the cool night air. Tomorrow, everything would change. Ethan arrived at the cafe the next morning with a newfound weight pressing against his chest. Sleep had eluded him, his mind racing with everything he had uncovered. Lisa wasn't just negligent. She was corrupt, siphoning funds meant for employees, manipulating schedules, and running Brew Haven into the ground. The worst part was that no one had the power to stop her. Not Miguel, not the baristas, not even the loyal customers who once cherished this place. They were all trapped under her rule, beaten down by a system that saw them as disposable. But Ethan wasn't. As he stepped behind the counter, Miguel greeted him with a tired nod. "You survive another day?" Ethan smirked faintly. "Barely." Lisa strolled in moments later, her presence suffocating the brief sense of camaraderie. She didn't acknowledge anyone, her attention fixed on her phone as she made her way to the office. Ethan clenched his fists, his patience thinning by the second. The morning rush came in waves, and Ethan focused on keeping up while watching Lisa. She barely worked. She hovered, barked orders, and made employees feel like they were one mistake away from losing everything. Then came the moment that shattered his last ounce of restraint. A young mother, Anna, stepped up to the counter, her eyes lined with exhaustion. Ethan had noticed her before, one of the part-time workers, always on time, always pushing through with quiet determination. She hesitated before speaking, casting a glance toward Lisa's office. "Hey, Miguel," she said, her voice hushed. "Do you think there's any chance I can get an advance on my paycheck?" "Just a little. I've got rent coming up, and my sitter raised her rates." Miguel shifted uncomfortably, lowering his voice. "You have to ask Lisa." Anna swallowed hard, nodding as she wiped her palms against her apron. Ethan watched as she approached the office, standing outside for a moment before knocking softly. Lisa didn't respond. Anna knocked again. What? Lisa snapped, not bothering to look up from her phone when Anna eased the door open. I was wondering if I could get an advance on my paycheck. Just this once. Lisa scoffed. An advance? Anna nodded quickly. I'd pay it back next check. I just need a little help right now. Lisa exhaled sharply, leaning back in her chair with a smirk. Let me get this straight. You want me to give you money in advance when you can barely finish your shifts on time? Anna's face paled. I always. You're lucky I even keep you on a schedule, Lisa interrupted, her voice laced with mockery. You're part-time, Anna. Not a priority. And if you can't handle your responsibilities, maybe this job isn't for you. The words landed like a slap, and Anna stiffened, her hands curling into fists at her sides. She opened her mouth as if to argue, but thought better of it. Instead, she muttered, I understand, and turned away. Ethan saw it then, the raw defeat in her eyes. The way her shoulders sagged. The way she avoided meeting anyone's gaze as she returned to her station. Something inside him snapped. He moved before he could second-guess himself, stepping toward Lisa's office and pushing the door open without knocking. Lisa looked up, irritation flashing across her face. What the hell do you? You're a thief. The words were cold, sharp, slicing through the air like a blade. Lisa blinked, momentarily stunned, before letting out a dry laugh. Excuse me. Ethan took another step forward, voice steady but laced with steel. You've been skimming bonuses, slashing hours to manipulate payroll, taking money that doesn't belong to you while treating your employees like dirt. Lisa scoffed, rolling her eyes. That's a lot of accusations from a barista who's been here for what, 2 days? Ethan didn't break eye contact. I checked the records. The missing bonuses, the discrepancies in inventory orders, everything. You've been lining your pockets while people like Miguel and Anna are barely getting by. Her expression darkened. I don't know what you think you found, but I suggest you keep your mouth shut if you want to keep your job. Ethan let out a quiet, humorless laugh. You still don't get it, do you? And then he reached up, pulling off the worn beanie, ruffling his hair back into place. His posture shifted, his usual quiet humility replaced by an unmistakable authority. Lisa's smirk faltered. My name isn't Noah Carter, he said coolly. It's Ethan Cross. Silence fell over the cafe. Lisa's face drained of color. No, that's the CEO of Brew Haven, Ethan finished for her, watching as the realization hit. Gasps rippled from the employees behind the counter. Miguel's eyes widened, the cloth he had been using to wipe down the espresso machine slipping from his hand. Lisa forced a hollow laugh, straightening. Nice trick. But you expect me to believe. Ethan pulled his phone from his pocket, unlocking it with a swift motion and turning the screen toward her. The homepage of Brew Haven's official corporate portal gleamed back, his profile and executive credentials displayed in sharp clarity. Lisa's breath hitched. He lowered the phone, voice calm but merciless. I own this cafe. I own every cafe in this company. And I just spent 2 days watching you abuse the people who make this place run. Lisa swallowed, her mask of confidence cracking. I was just following policy. No, Ethan said, his tone sharp. You were following greed. The weight of his words settled over her, and for the first time since he had met her, Lisa looked truly afraid. Miguel took a hesitant step forward. So what happens now? Ethan exhaled slowly, scanning the room. The exhausted employees, the customers who had stopped mid-sip to witness the confrontation, the quiet hope flickering in Anna's expression. He turned back to Lisa. You're fired. The cafe erupted. Lisa's mouth opened and closed, her face frozen in disbelief. You can't fire me, she sputtered, a weak attempt at defiance. There's a process. I am the process, Ethan cut in sharply, his voice carrying through the cafe. Pack your things. You're done here. Silence stretched between them, thick with tension. The employees stood motionless, cups and rags forgotten in their hands. Miguel barely masked the satisfaction flickering in his eyes. Anna, still shaken, looked as though she didn't dare to believe what she had just witnessed. Lisa's eyes darted around, searching for support, for someone to take her side. But there was no one left to manipulate. Her power had vanished the moment Ethan revealed himself. She let out a bitter scoff, yanking open the office door with unnecessary force. "Fine," she snapped. This place was a sinking ship anyway. Ethan said nothing as she stormed to the back, shoving files and personal belongings into a battered handbag. Every employee watched, cautious but emboldened. By the time Lisa reappeared, the cafe felt lighter, as if a suffocating weight had been lifted. She turned to Ethan, her expression twisted with anger. "You think you're a hero? You're just another suit-playing savior." Ethan met her glare, unwavering. "No," he said. "I'm just doing what I should have done a long time ago." Lisa scoffed, shouldering past him. The door slammed shut behind her, and with it, the last remnants of her reign. For a moment, no one moved. Then Miguel let out a sharp breath. "Holy shit." The tension cracked, replaced by a quiet murmur of disbelief. Anna pressed a hand to her mouth, her eyes glistening. "She's really gone?" Ethan nodded. "She's gone." A stunned pause followed, then slowly Miguel grinned. "Well, damn." Laughter, real, relieved laughter, rippled through the employees. The shift was instant, as though an unseen pressure had finally eased. Ethan turned back to them, his expression softening. "Things are going to change. Starting now." He spent the next few hours in the office, combing through schedules, payroll, and order logs, undoing the damage Lisa had left behind. He reinstated the hours that had been unfairly cut, ensured that the long-overdue bonuses would be distributed immediately, and placed emergency orders for the missing inventory. When he emerged, Miguel and Anna were waiting. "Is this real?" Anna asked quietly. "The bonuses? The extra hours? It's actually happening." Ethan nodded. "And it's just the beginning." She blinked rapidly, emotion thick in her voice. "Thank you." Miguel crossed his arms, shaking his head in amazement. "Can't believe the boss himself came down to see this mess firsthand." Ethan exhaled, his gaze drifting across the cafe. "I should have done it sooner." Miguel tilted his head. "Why did you come down here?" Ethan hesitated, then gave a small, wry smile. "Because I forgot what Brew Haven was supposed to be. I got too caught up in the numbers and trusted the wrong people. This place, it used to be more than just a cafe. It was supposed to mean something." Miguel nodded. "It still can." The words settled in Ethan's chest, a quiet reminder that redemption wasn't just about fixing mistakes. It was about making sure they never happened again. The next morning, the cafe felt different. The air was lighter. The employees moved with something close to ease. Customers noticed, commenting on the faster service, the improved atmosphere. Word spread quickly. Lisa was gone, and change was coming. Ethan worked alongside his employees that day, not as a CEO, but as part of the team. He brewed coffee, wiped down counters, and listened. Really listened. When the lunch rush hit, Anna passed by him with a grin. "So, boss," she teased, "you sticking around?" Ethan smirked, glancing at the steaming cup in his hands. "For a little while," he said. "Just long enough to make sure Brew Haven felt like home again."